I never imagined that a still afternoon on the patio would become the beginning of a quiet revolution in how I viewed my world, my place in it, and a stranger who entered it so softly. But when the landscaper arrived, sun-touched, soft-spoken, and carrying a quiet gravity, my solitary day unfolded into something infinitely more delicate and significant. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, what city are you listening from? It helps me feel connected to you. Now, let's begin. I was resting on the wicker chaise when it happened, drifting in the gentle Georgia heat, the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. My name is Liana, 23, though some mornings I feel the weight of decades more. I'd carved out the day for myself. No assignments, no notifications, no roles to play. Just the murmur of the fountain and the novel lying unopened on my lap. The latch on the garden gate chimed first, a clear, familiar note. I stirred, pushing my sunglasses up, and there he was, Cassius. He entered with the unassuming ease of someone deeply familiar with soil and silence. He surveyed the space with a practiced eye before his gaze found mine. It wasn't a lightning strike. It was more like noticing a new bird in a familiar tree, subtle, but it changed the composition of the sky. "Apologies," he said, removing his wide-brimmed hat. "The notice said today for the hedges. I can come back if it's a bother." "You're perfectly on time," I replied, though my heartbeat fluttered. I'd forgotten all about it. He nodded, a smile touching his eyes more than his lips, and moved toward the garden shed. I watched with idle interest at first, just a young woman observing a professional at his work, but his manner held my attention. His movements were economical, respectful, as if he were collaborating with the greenery, not commanding it. The clink of his tools was a soft percussion. He adjusted his work gloves and glanced back. "I can start on the east border if I'm in your light." "You're exactly where you should be," I said, reaching for my lemon water, suddenly conscious of the gesture. He began with the boxwood hedges. The hum of the shearer split the afternoon silence, but instead of intruding, it wove a new rhythm into it. Every cut was deliberate. He worked as if he understood these plants had a will of their own. I found a strange comfort in that. I tried to return to my idleness, but my eyes kept drifting back to him, to the way the light dusted his linen shirt, the defined patience in his forearms, the quiet focus on his face. After a time, he switched off the tool. "Mind if I use your tap?" he asked, gesturing to the stone basin. "Please," I said, swinging my legs to the ground. "It's a thirsty kind of day." He came nearer, and for the first time I saw the details. The hint of amber in his green eyes, the faded tan lines on his wrists, the calm certainty in his posture. Not timid, not bold, simply present. "Do you tend many gardens in this neighborhood?" I asked, aiming for casual. "A fair few," he said, filling his canteen. "Most clients don't stay to watch the process, though." I smiled. "Consider me an appreciative audience." I needed a day with no agenda. He nodded as if he understood the depth of that simple statement. A comfortable quiet settled between us. The wind chimes on the porch whispered. A magnolia petal spiraled onto the flagstones. The silence felt shared, not empty. "Well," he finally said, "I'll let you reclaim your peace." "You aren't disturbing it," I said, my voice softer than I intended. He paused, his eyes meeting mine fully. "I'm glad." He returned to his work, but something had imperceptibly shifted. Not in the garden, but within me. It felt as if a window in a long, closed room had been cracked open, letting in a fresh, forgotten breeze. I lay back, listening to the sound of his labor, feeling the air between us become a tangible, gentle thing. It was an utterly ordinary afternoon, and yet it was becoming anything but. When I finally closed my eyes, I acknowledged a quiet truth. For the first time in a very long while, I felt a sense of company. The following afternoon carried a different quality, as if yesterday's sunlight had left a lingering resonance. I awoke with the memory of Cassius's brief, eye-crinkling smile in my mind, not with fantasy, but with the echo of a genuine, uncomplicated exchange. It had been an age since someone's attention felt so freely given, without any strings attached. By mid-afternoon, the light had deepened to honey. I stepped onto the patio with a sketchbook, not because I intended to draw, but because it gave me a reason to be out there, waiting. The fountain glittered as always, but the whole garden seemed poised, holding its breath. I had just settled when the gate latch chimed. There he was. Cassius walked in with a coil of drip line over his shoulder and a weeding bucket. He looked momentarily surprised to see me, then his expression warmed. "Afternoon," he said, "twice in a row. I hope I'm not becoming a nuisance." "Never a nuisance," I replied, and it was the truth. "I thought you might be back. The hedges look wonderful." He set down his bucket with a modest dip of his head. "Thank you. Just need to clear the old growth from the perennial bed." I'll try to keep the mess contained. You always say that? I teased the words light. He stopped, looked at me, and a genuine grin appeared. You've caught me. I opened my sketchbook but mostly watched him over its edge. He moved with the same mindful pace, but today his glances toward me held a new ease, simple acknowledgments that we were sharing the time. As he carried an armful of cuttings to the compost, he asked, "Find your quiet today?" I blinked. My quiet. Yesterday you said you needed a day with no agenda. I wondered if today felt the same. I closed the sketchbook. I'm looking for it. Some days it's more elusive. He wiped his brow with his sleeve. I understand that. It wasn't the sentiment but the tone, soft, devoid of pity, full of shared recognition, that resonated within me. He returned to the flower bed, and the conversation hung in the air, transforming the space from mere proximity to something nearer to kinship. A warm breeze carried the scent of turned earth and jasmine. He knelt by the lavender bushes, and for a while, the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the scrape of his trowel. He stood eventually, arching his back with a soft sigh. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," he said, a low laugh in his voice. "Just reminding myself I'm not 20 anymore. The body keeps its own ledgers." "You seem plenty capable to me," I said, then quickly added, "I mean, you clearly know what you're doing." He tilted his head, amused. "I'll take the compliment." A warm flush crept up my neck, but I didn't look away. It was a simple, human moment, and its honesty was a balm. He walked to the basin to rinse the soil from his hands. "Mind if I ask you something?" he said, not turning. "Go ahead. What brings you out here so often? Just the quiet?" The question felt curious, not invasive. I suppose the garden feels like a real place. Life has felt abstract lately. Too many thoughts, not enough roots. He nodded slowly. The earth is good for that. Gives thoughts a place to land, or a place to hide from them, I said with a wry smile. He looked at me then, really looked. Sometimes hiding is just the first part of processing. The insight, coming from the quiet man with dirt under his nails, surprised me. It hinted at a depth I was only beginning to sense, something steady and reflective. He finished drying his hands and took a step closer. Not into my space, but into a new layer of our shared awareness. "If you ever want to talk," he said gently, "I'm here every few days. This work comes with a lot of thinking room." "That's kind of you," I said. "It's not kindness," he said thoughtfully. "It's just I know the weight of carrying things solo." The words sank into a quiet part of me. I didn't answer immediately, letting the warmth of the sun, the scent of crushed herbs, and the solidity of his presence envelop the moment. He moved back to his tools. "Anyway," he said almost shyly, "I should let you be. Take your time," I said softly. "I like that you're here." He glanced over his shoulder, offered that small, potent smile again, and something unspoken passed between us, something quiet, respectful, and undeniably stirring. Just like that, the afternoon continued, but nothing within me would ever be quite the same. By the time of his next visit, I was no longer pretending to sketch or relax. I was simply present, though I told myself it was just for the peace of the garden. The truth was more nuanced. The space between us had become a living thing, warm and charged with a gentle anticipation. The gate latch sounded its familiar note. I looked up without pretense. Cassius entered with a pruning saw and a bundle of stakes. He wore a simple hither, gray shirt today. When he saw me, his expression softened at the edges, a silent greeting. "Afternoon, Liana," he said, my name sounding natural on his tongue. "Hello, Cassius. Big project today." He glanced at the overgrown wisteria on the arbor. "This vine and I have a negotiation scheduled," he said with a faint smile. "I'm hoping we can reach a compromise." I laughed, and he moved to the arbor, setting down his tools. I watched him assess the plant, his touch careful on the woody stems. There was a profound solace in watching a person who respected his craft. After a few minutes, he looked back. "You're here early." "Couldn't settle inside," I admitted. "My mind was busy. Good busy or hard busy?" he asked gently. "A bit of both." He nodded as if he carried a similar ledger. "Sometimes the mind needs to run its course before it can rest." "That sounds very wise," he chuckled. "Or just the musings of a man who spends too much time with plants. They're good listeners." I hesitated, then voiced the thought that often haunted me. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for your own life to begin?" He paused, leaning a hand against the arbor post. "More often than I'd like to admit." Hearing him say it steadied me. It made my own stagnation feel less like a failure and more like a shared human condition. I sat up, wrapping my arms around my knees. "What do you do when you feel that way?" Cassius walked closer, stopping at a respectful but easy distance. "I look for the things that are already alive. The work in front of me, the quality of the light, the people who make the waiting feel less empty. I swallowed, feeling the weight of that last phrase. Does it help? More than I ever expected, he replied. He returned to the wisteria, but now the silence between us was vibrant, humming with a tender, cautious energy. I watched him select which branches to cut, his movements precise. Every so often his eyes would find mine, and each time, it was a quiet spark of mutual recognition. When he finished, he came to the basin. I stood propelled by a gathering courage. Cassius, I said softly. He turned, his gaze patient. Why do you speak to me the way you do? The question hung, gentle and bare. He dried his hands methodically. Because you hear me, he said simply. Most people listen to reply. You just listen. It's a rare thing. I took a step toward him, drawn by the grounded honesty in his voice. I like the way you talk, I said quietly. It feels substantive. He studied me, his look one of careful sincerity that made my breath catch. I don't have conversations like this with everyone, he admitted. But with you, it doesn't feel like conversation. It feels like exchange. Something deep within me softened and opened. I became acutely aware of the few feet of fragrant air between us, thick with potential. He reached for his saw, then stopped. Liana, he said, his voice lower. If I ever overstep or make this feel complicated, please tell me. That's never my intention. You haven't, I said, my reply immediate. Not at all. Good, he murmured, and the quiet relief in that word tugged at my heart. He went back to clearing the cuttings, but his motions were slower, more deliberate. I watched the play of muscle under his shirt, the focused grace of his hands. But it wasn't mere attraction that held me. It was the profound feeling of being seen, gently, completely without agenda. When he was done, he approached me with a single gardenia blossom, its white petals flawless. This one was perfect, he said. Thought it belonged out here with you. I took the flower, our fingers brushing. The simplicity of the gesture unmoored me. Thank you, I whispered. He didn't pull his hand away hastily. The contact was brief, present, a silent conversation of its own. I'll be back after the weekend, he said. I'll be here, I replied. His eyes held a new softness. I'm counting on it. He gathered his tools, opened the gate, and paused on the threshold as if balancing on the edge of a farewell and a promise. Then he left. As the latch clicked shut, I realized with startling clarity I wasn't waiting for the day to pass anymore. I was waiting for him. The morning of his fourth visit dawned with a serene certainty. I awoke early, not from anxiety, but from a calm, full-hearted anticipation. The previous days had woven a new warmth into my life, unexpected and deeply grounding. The sky was a flawless expanse of southern blue. I came outside with 2 glasses of iced tea, telling myself it was just a gesture, but the deeper truth sat quietly in my chest. I hoped to share this moment with him. The gate chimed right on cue. I didn't startle. I simply smiled and met his gaze. Cassius entered with a small bag of soil amendments. Today, his expression held a new resolve, as if he'd walked here with words prepared. Afternoon, he said, his voice a gentle rumble. Hi, Cassius. Your timing is impeccable. He set his bag down. I finished the heavy work. Today is just feeding the roses. He paused. That's not the only reason I'm here. My pulse was a soft drumbeat. I didn't think it was. He came to the table under the magnolia where I sat. The breeze stirred the leaves above us. He didn't sit immediately, as if giving the moment its due space. I brought you some tea, I said, pushing a glass toward him. He accepted it, his fingers brushing mine. Thank you. He took a sip, then looked at me. You notice what people need. Is that so unusual? It's a gift, he said. A generous one. I took a breath, letting the sincerity of the afternoon settle around us. Cassius? I began quietly. These afternoons, this connection between us. Is it something you feel, or am I reading into the silence? He set his glass down, exhaling slowly, a breath of honesty, not hesitation. You're not reading into anything, he said. I think about these visits. I look forward to them more than is probably prudent. A warmth, gentle and real, spread through me. Not a dizzying rush, but the deep, sure recognition of a mutual truth. I feel the same, I said. He reached across the table, his movement slow, granting me every chance to retreat. I didn't. His hand covered mine, warm and solid. No pressure, no pull, just a profound affirmation. I don't want to disrupt your life, he said quietly. I just value your presence. I value the way you observe the world. You make this garden feel like a sanctuary, not just a plot of land. My throat tightened with a sweet, sharp recognition. You've made it a sanctuary for me, I whispered. We sat like that for a long, peaceful moment, the chimes singing softly, the scent of gardenia and damp earth around us. He didn't cling to my hand. He simply rested his upon it, and that was enough. Eventually, he withdrew, not because the connection was broken, but because he respected its shape. The roses do actually need tending, he said, a soft smile in his eyes. Then tend them, I replied. I'm not going anywhere. And I didn't. I watched him work, each movement familiar now. He glanced back often, and each look felt like a quiet vow, built on patience and a growing, mutual respect. When he finished, he returned to the gate, the late sun gilding his profile. I saw not just a landscaper, but a man who had, with great gentleness, tilled the hardened soil of my solitude. I'll see you next week, he said. I'll be waiting. I answered. His smile was full of quiet promise. I know. The gate closed behind him, but the space he filled remained a warm, steady presence. As I sat in the deepening twilight, the first fireflies winking to life, I understood something profound. Sometimes the most transformative moments aren't earthquakes, they are the slow, sure turning of the seasons. Sometimes a stranger doesn't arrive to rescue you, but to remind you that you are, and always have been, worth seeing. And sometimes connection isn't a declaration. It's a quiet series of afternoons, a shared glance, a single gardenia, and the courage to finally say, I see you too.